Thank you. All right, we're really pleased to have the DeWinter Group here today. We've gotten to know DeWinter as we've looked at doing specialty recruiting. And you hear a lot about this, but almost boutique-like recruiting. So they've been in the San Francisco Bay Area for a number of years, really well-known team. They have a good group here today. This is a partner, Don Seeley. I'll be introducing in just a second here. Hold on. And the thing they specialize in, which is quite interesting, is finance, engineering, operations, high level, on down in organizations. So you can notice that we had two people up here, but Don said, the heck with it, Ryan's not going to present. So in any event, I'm going to pass it over to Don now. We're just appreciative for the time you guys have given us today.
All right, thanks, Greg. And thank you to Sway and to Silicon Valley Bank. I really appreciate the invitation. So again, my name is Don. I'm a partner at DeWinter. I've been with the firm since we opened the doors in 2000. That's 18 years. It's lifetimes ago. It's a lot of scar tissue, as people said. We like to think of it as our own Silicon Valley success story, right? Tech adjacent, not necessarily technology, not startup, small business, but we started with 4 of us in a really tiny office right off the Alameda in San Jose, and there's 63 of us now in a couple different locations in San Francisco and some other places with a built-out business model that includes IT, finance, consulting solutions, as well as direct hire and retained search. So that's kind of the high level. But they asked me to talk about talent, which is a huge, broad topic. So I tried to narrow that down to the things that we really have some functional experience with. I'm never the smartest person in the room, and if I am, my client is in deep trouble. Deep trouble. But I have spent my entire professional career passionately pursuing great matches for my clients, right? Like that's what I really enjoy doing, is fostering those connections. And so I think we do have a little bit of insight into, how to build a culture of talent attraction, right? How to make yourself a little bit of a magnet, some of the real practical things that you can do to set that example from the top, right? And so we're going to be going through some of those principles today. All right, so here we are. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process and strategies that work with talent attraction, right? Especially for founders, especially at early stage. What are some of the things that you can be doing to build that culture internally? Okay, so what we've identified over thousands of placements in the startup venture-backed ecosystem are, I think, 3 simple things, simple but not easy, that help sustain success with talent. That's clear values, a consistent process, and creative sourcing. Okay, so what are clear values? It's a soft thing to discuss, but without a very consistent message to candidates, talent attraction is hard unless you can talk about what is your vision, like what is your audacious business goal, and how do you communicate that? How does that translate into the kinds of people that we are looking to hire, the kinds of people that are going to be successful here? So talent attraction actually starts a little bit before you go out and look for a specific person. Talent attraction, I think the very successful companies start much earlier in the process. Who are we? What are we trying to do? And how does that translate into the kinds of people that we're looking to hire? So one of my favorite TED Talks is from 2009. It's a guy by the name of Simon Sinek, and I thought somebody mentioned, Start with why. It's like one of my favorites, right? It's got a full ring. It's, here's what we do, here's how we do it, here's why, right? So everybody can tell you what they do. Smaller number of people can tell you how, what's my value prop. And a much smaller group of people can tell you why. So at DeWinter, our vision, right, our value statement is, we empower our candidates, our clients, and our internal employees to accomplish their audacious business goals, leveraging our relationships, right? So everybody at DeWinter understands that relationships are the core of what we do and what we do well. And every candidate that comes into interview with us also understands that, that's the why. That's why our business exists, right? Like, that's why you should care. If you're good at relationships, if you're good at building and fostering that so that other people can achieve success, we want you on our team. Okay, so that's the value proposition, and it starts very, very early. I think the successful companies that I've seen have the ability to convey that information consistently to candidates, right? Can you consistently tell them, what is our vision, right? What are our values, our corporate values? Okay, so that's the first principle, talent attraction. Just having the ability to do that well, do it often. Okay, so the second principle of talent attraction is what I like to call consistent process. Greg is over there crying. He was like, be provocative. And I was like, process. I'm a former accountant, so there's limits on my personality. This is the limit of my personality. This is me being bold, by the way. So yeah, a consistent process. Again, simple but not easy. The companies who do it well separate themselves in the marketplace. I talked to thousands and thousands of candidates over the course of my 23-year recruiting career. And I cannot tell you how many debriefs, how many conversations I've had where people said, that company has no idea what they're doing. They don't know what they want this person to do. 3 different people told me the job description was 3 different things. A thoughtful process, something that is agreed upon in advance, something that you have injected some rigor into, I think goes a long way in the talent marketplace towards making you a destination of choice, right? Because I can tell you that the majority of people, the median companies, only the top quartile companies are doing that, right? With any sort of consistency. Continuous sourcing. So the very first step, and where you turn on the spigot, successful companies view hiring as an ongoing endeavor, right? This is something that you don't just do when you have a particular position. This is something that you do all the time. And it takes slightly different forms than networking or going out and looking for capital, but fundamentally it's that sales job that he was talking about, right? You have to go out and evangelize for your organization. And the right time to do it isn't when you're behind the 8 ball, right? The right time to do it is continuously, because that puts you in a position to choose the best talent when the time comes to hire, right? So how do you do that? Leaders effectively set aside a certain amount of time every day, week, month, quarter, etc., to reach out to candidates, to proactively introduce yourself. You've got a CRM, whether it's ProsperWorks or Zoho or Salesforce or Insightly or whatever it is. You've got something in-house, you document religiously, you follow up, you invite people that you're super interested in to hackathons, to business events, you sponsor these types of events, you speak at events, you attend events, you've already done something for today. So it's great, you're ahead of the game. But the successful companies, I think, actually set aside the time to do that in advance, right? In each one of those interactions, they can consistently convey their company values, right? And their vision. So you start at the beginning, what's that story? And then in every one of those interactions, am I able to tell somebody, this is what we're all about. This is why you should work here. Can I do that consistently? All right, so the second step of a consistent process is a job description. Again, super exciting stuff. I know it sounds boring, but reflect back on your last hire and how that job description was created. Was it you alone who did that and kind of pulled it out of the ether and birthed it into the world? Was it a collaborative endeavor? Was it something where you really took a step back and said, what is the mission? What is the purpose of this role? What are 3 to 5 desired outcomes? What do I hope to attain? People, it's been proven time and time again that people want to work for a purpose, not just for a wage, not just for a job description, etc. So what are you telling somebody in a job description about how they can contribute to the company's success? How are you empowering somebody? How are you delivering that message of values and vision, even in something as mundane as a job description? Okay, so now that that's fully baked, we're moving slowly down the process, and now one of my favorite things is the interview. So many things go wrong. Every time I think I've heard a story, I'm like, no, nothing will ever top that, about that interview and that breaking in that particular way. I'm always amazed that we find new ways to break things. But from an interview standpoint, I think what we always counsel our clients on is to be very thoughtful and rigorous upfront, right? So if you have this vision, if you have a value statement, if you are continuously sourcing, if you have fully built out a job description collaboratively with all of the internal stakeholders, by the time you get to an interview process, everybody is kind of on the same page, right? And then you can ask standardized questions, compare apples to apples. It's when 3 different people have different desired outcomes for the role. They've got a different kind of experience or skill set that they're looking for. That's really a mixed messaging issue with candidates that causes a ton of problems and really prevents you from getting maybe the people who could have really accelerated the traction or the growth of your particular company. So I've seen a lot of things break. Sweating the small stuff is key, right? Were they actually greeted? Were they friendly? Is everybody on time? Is the conference room booked? Right? Have you debugged video and audio and phone calls in advance? Not like, sorry, like as somebody's in the room. It's one of the biggest culture signals to candidates as they walk in, right? Are they prepared or unprepared? Are they proactive or reactive? How I'm treated during this process is a very strong signal to how I'm going to be treated as an employee, right? And so the kind of thought and effort that you put into that process sends a really clear signal. An example just from recently, within the last week or two, I've got a client who's looking for a senior director leadership position, something that's absolutely critical to the continued scaling and growth of their organization. Their top candidate, which we represent, is going in for final round, big 5.5, 6 hour panel. She's interviewing while she's on maternity leave. This company proactively said, hey, you know what? We're going to give 30 minutes right in the middle for you to have a snack, use our mother's room, pump, you do what you need to do, right? Because we know that going 6 hours is almost impossible. That kind of forethought, you talk to that candidate is like, this is probably what it's like to be an employee at this company. I feel well taken care of. I feel like they are thinking in advance about my needs, right? And so the more that you can be thoughtful, and everybody's running 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? Like we've all got business objectives. But the more you can be thoughtful about this process, I think what I'm trying to zero in on today is that you separate yourself from almost everybody else in the marketplace, the more you put effort into the front end of this, as opposed to just trying to close people in a haphazard interview process where you haven't done a lot of the work prior to that point to really get them interested or engaged. Like, all of you are snowflakes. I'm a snowflake. We're all different and unique, but this is a crazy candidate market. They have lots and lots and lots of choices. And so how you talk about your vision, how you talk about your values, how thoughtful that interview process was at the front end is hugely critical to attracting that talent. One of my favorite people in hiring and talent is Patty McCord, the former head of people at Netflix, who's got a ton of great information out there. This is just a quote that I love, and I encourage you to go seek out her writing on hiring and strategy and what they did at Netflix to build a really unique employee culture. And that goes way beyond talent attraction at the front end. It has a lot to do with what you do from a retention standpoint too. But our goal was to have every person who came in for an interview walk away wanting the job, even if we hated the candidate. We wanted them to think that it was an incredible experience, it was effective, it was on time, questions were relevant, I was treated with dignity. I think it's so easy to sit in your office with all of the things that we all have to do every single day and view somebody coming in as just one more box to check during that day, right? Like, okay, I got to meet this candidate. I encourage everybody here to empathize a little bit with what that person has done, right? Take time out of their day to thoughtfully prepare questions, to do research on your organization. Probably got a little bit nervous, hands are a little bit clammy, right? Put in the work up front because they saw some sort of value in that experience or in learning more. And so I would encourage everybody here to treat it the same way, right? You'd be amazed how many people do not. All right, so the fourth step of a consistent process, I think I got that right, in talent attraction, the decision, right? Decide quickly. If you're thoughtful about everything up front, the decision should be pretty easy, right? You were able to consistently, talk about your company values, probe on whether or not this candidate, their culture and personality was a good fit. You got a fully baked job description. You're really testing their experience against the desired outcomes for this role. You've done a lot of the work up front. The interview process goes smoothly. Everybody's asking standardized questions so you can compare this candidate to this candidate. And then when you get to the end, boom, you can make a decision, right? This is like dating. Like we all remember that. I don't actually, but we all remember dating. It's like nobody wants to be called 2.5 weeks later, right? Like, maybe I'll go on another day with you. Twist my arm, right? If you do all the work up front, you can make a decision quickly, right? Thoughtful process, rapid decision, right? That's always what we encourage with our clients. Take the time up front, bake that in up front. And then when it comes time, make it quickly. Okay, so the one other thing I wanted to talk about from a process standpoint is, do mishires happen? Yes, I see them all the time. Do mishires happen if you follow a rigorous standardized process pretty consistently? Not as much, not anywhere nearly as much, right? Typically where I see mishires happen is when there was a red flag that was ignored. Oh, your board says you got to talk to this guy, or somebody's pushed in for some other reason, or there's no job description. Oh my God, we need a head of product, and now we need, and go and hire him right now, and no rigor, no thought. The less it's hashed out up front, the more likely it is to result in a mishire on the back end, right? Just take like I said, simple, but not easy. Take the time, right? Just take the time. All right, so the third principle of talent attraction is creative sourcing. What is I'm a former accountant, again, not very creative. But here's some concrete examples, and without seeming self-serving. One of the biggest areas that you can be creative from a sourcing standpoint is with compensation. If you think of a team, it's an all-star team, right? You're going to selectively pay 3 or 4 or 5 key individuals, right, who can help drag you across those milestones. Pay unfairly. Pay unfairly for those people. It has been my experience that very rarely will, I guess, how do I put this? The business gains that you make by acquiring top talent, very rarely is that material to what you're paying them in compensation, right? So can you keep somebody from your competitor? Can you launch 3 months ahead of schedule? Can you hit a milestone earlier? Can you penetrate a new market? Can you do what you need to do to raise capital and revenue, right? Can you do that with talent? And so thinking about compensation creatively is a self-serving way to, but yeah, it works, right? If there's a couple of individuals who can really affect your business outcome, I encourage you to be creative. And one of the ways you do that is earlier in the process, you assign a value, right? So you say, okay, here's a position. It could be located anywhere. We can pay market, right, for this. Here's a position, though, that, there's only 100 people who know how to do this, and we got to go and get the best one, and we got to keep them away from our competition. And if we do that, like paying them double what they're making right now in order to make sure that they are here with us working on our objectives and not somebody else's, that's going to be worth it. Another way that you can be creative, I guess another couple ways that you can be creative is I encourage people to look past the paper, right? I think the holy grail, especially here, is I want somebody with startup experience because they know what it's like to work in this kind of environment. And while that's true, that's a finite supply, right? That's a finite supply. And there's actually folks who have 5 startups on their resume that I wouldn't I wouldn't let them watch my dog. So I think I can't let that be the ultimate arbiter of kind of competence. So what I often try to look at is, okay, I'm looking for a data scientist, but is this person maybe they're not called a data scientist, maybe they just work with a ton of data at a bank, right? And they're just waiting to be plucked out into this really cool job. Maybe they work at a larger company, but they have risk-tolerant behaviors like side projects, right? Or international experience, or a great social media presence, or something that shows that they are risk-tolerant beyond working at a startup, right? Have you analyzed the people that you do end up hiring for commonalities so that you can look even deeper into resumes, right? So we have found a lot of data scientists love music, right? It's a left and right brain uniter, and that's what a lot of those folks do in their day-to-day life. So, okay, so those are some creative ways. Sway probably doesn't want me to say this, but you can also recruit while you're raising capital. I've seen a couple of companies pull that off well. Raising capital is time intensive. It's hard to pivot between those two, but it's very similar processes. And you would be surprised what bringing actual profiles and names to your investors will do instead of just empty job descriptions, right? Candidates love to see the same kind of momentum that investors do, right? So as you're out telling that story, here's what, I'm engaged with this woman. She's my next VP of sales. She's going to help blow this thing up. And she's interested if we can get this next round. So I don't know. There's some creative stuff that you can do. I've got a million examples. You can talk to any of us who are here, Michael, Ryan, Joey, myself. We're going to be hanging around at the happy hour, all that good stuff. Okay, creative geographically. I think I talked to a couple of you, before the meeting even started. This is kind of a no-brainer right now. There's plenty of resources out there on how to do this effectively. The global versus local talent pool, especially from a cost perspective, is just, it's such a crazy metric that we're looking at right now. So as you assign the value internally, maybe decide, where does somebody really have to be? Do they have to be here? Can they be somewhere else? 10 years ago, a little bit dicier from a remote management standpoint, but I think with some of the new tools that are out there right now, it becomes a little bit easier. All right, so continuous cycle kind of thing. Again, I think just focusing on those 3 principles, building a clear value set, having a consistent process, and then being creative with your sourcing, that's where a lot of our client companies are able to separate themselves from the pack and really become kind of a talent magnet, as opposed to somebody who has to pick the best of what's left. All right, if you have any questions, thank you again for the opportunity, Greg. Really appreciate it.